Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the edited live replay plus the finishing for the sunflower bloom pillow that I created during the release day for my Felt Stitch and Create Summer 2025 release live. So I did a trunk show. I will link that right here as well as at the end of the video, showing all of the new dies plus some fun projects, a fun trunk show, showing all 4 of the new die sets. But I also created this new stitched panel. And because I created this during the video, but I needed to finish it into the actual pillow after the fact, I wanted to go ahead and edit this for you guys. So here is my panel, and yes, I did do a little start on this. All of the felt colors, all of the felt I'm using today is from Benzie Design. All of the felt colors will be listed, and I am mixing and matching dies. Yes, the focus is on this sunflower bloom, but I needed a small leaf, so I went to my Pumpkin House die set from Fall 2024 release, and I grabbed a little leaf to incorporate into this. The small bloom I'm using today is from the Cheeky Apple set. So the small bloom in the flower center, Cheeky Apple, the large sunflower, flower center, and large leaf are from Sunflower Bloom, and the small leaf is from the Pumpkin House. Now, this cording is not in the video tutorial as well. That is going to be a separate video here on my YouTube channel. My friend actually offered to help me film this when she's visiting, so I will be sharing that soon. It's really hard to film during the live and also by myself. It really requires a little bit more work because it does take up more space in order to showcase the cording technique. So that will be coming. What I like to do for my pillows, and I didn't have a definite size in mind, and I mentioned this during the live, I want to keep my background piece a little bit bigger until I get to the end of the project. Off camera, I did tack down one of the pieces of cording I'm using for the stem of the sunflower, and I backstitched, just hand stitched the stems for the smaller flower as I felt that they didn't require as thick of a stem as the larger flowers did. I didn't want them to, look kind of, I don't know. I think it would have looked off if everything would have been super, super thick. After I have everything laid out how I want it to go, I can obviously tell both the left and the right are probably going to need to be trimmed down on the background panel. I am not going to do that till the end. In fact, you are not going to see me do that until I get close to the finishing where everything is stitched down. In order to mark where I want my stems to go, I am not great with freehanding it. We talked about this in the live video, that just really doesn't work well for me. When I'm working on a light piece of fabric, whether it's a regular cotton fabric or felt, I will often use an air erasable or heat erasable pen. Unfortunately, for a dark fabric like the graphite felt that I'm using today, that's not going to show up as well. I also love this chalk marking tool. This is from Clover. I've linked it down in the description, and that is what I use. I just laid out my cording and I ran that little chalk marker along the edge. It will brush away. In fact, I didn't even have to brush it away. As I'm working, I'm either covering it up or just bumping it, as you saw with my finger. It's going to disappear. It'll wipe off the fabric. The first thing we're going to do is tack down the cording to use as the stem. You might notice the other one I've already tacked down. It is hanging off of the edge of the fabric and there is a knot at the end. This is on purpose. Yes, I'm tacking this in place, but I do not want to cut that flush with the edge or remove the knot until I've sewn my pillow together. And you are going to see me do that a little later in the video. Likewise, up at the top, I also have a giant knot to keep my cording in place here. I am keeping that there until I start stitching the bloom in place. Once I have secured the cording enough with my flower, I will snip that off because the end of the cording will be hidden underneath my sunflower bloom. In order to tack down my cording, I am following the chalk line that I placed here on the fabric, and I am using my needle and thread, and I am trying to hit the, that curve, I guess, or the twist. That's what I want to say. The twist in the cording. And I'm using 1 strand of coordinating DMC embroidery floss. Again, all the embroidery floss colors I am using are linked down below. I believe this is 730. And it coordinates, and it's kind of going to end up disappearing into the cording. See how it kind of just disappears into it? That is what we're looking for. I am going to continue to stitch this all the way down. Now, I did do the entire thing live, but I am going to speed this up for the sake of the edited video. And again, I will link to that live replay if you want to go back and watch anything more in real time. The only steps I did not share during the real-time video are the actual pillow, sewing it into a pillow and stuffing it, and how I finished it off that way. So definitely check that out in this video down below. Now, when I get to the end, I'm going to tie a little knot in the back of my felt, securing my little strand that I've used to tack my stem in place. Then we are going to knot the cording, and I'm actually going to knot it twice and cut in between the 2 knots. The reason being, I have enough cording left that if I want to make another little pillow or another little project, I have another stem here, or cording for something else. So I want to secure it so that it doesn't all come undone. And I'll just put that away in a drawer where I keep all of those little bits and extras. Okay, so we have our stems all placed here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut away that knot at the top. And you can see my cording already unraveled. It is tacked in place, but we are going to be sewing our sunflower down, and I'm not going to have to worry about it coming unraveled. Before we sew down the sunflower top, I always think it's a good idea whenever you are stitching down pieces that some of them overlap. You can see there are going to be leaves that overlap the stems, etc. Lay everything out so you have a very clear vision of what you need to stitch down first. In this case, I can tell it's going to be much easier if I stitch down my leaf before I stitch the other sunflower top down. In fact, if I had not done this live and not wanted to have some of the steps done prior to going live, because it was a very long, almost 2-hour live when I did this, I would have waited to put that other sunflower bloom on. I probably would have stitched down the leaves first, because you can see my embroidery floss is pretty long here, and it's catching on the flower, on the bloom, all those things. Now it will, the more things you add, your floss may kind of catch on things. You don't want to pull. So always just kind of gently unravel that, do what you need to do. Now I made an error stitching this leaf, and I say an error, it's not because no one will ever see the inside of the pillow. However, during the live, I did mention that when I am stitching these leaves, and if I'm going to do a leaf, I showed you the cross stitch berry where I use this as a topper. That tutorial will also be here on my channel soon. Or if you're going to use the sunflower and you want the leaves loose and you want the back to look as good as the front, there is a very specific way to stitch these no matter what leaf in what set you're using. So definitely watch the introductory video that I am linking here, as well as down in the description box, because that is going to tell you specifically how to stitch this, and that'll be the same for the apple, the strawberry, any of the leaves from the, pumpkin house or autumn acorn or any of those things. So I kind of pivoted in this video and just stitched it, but I want to stitch the entire thing. So you'll notice when stitching felt, I don't do a traditional quote unquote back stitch. Instead of a traditional back stitch, I like to go up and down every other hole. And then when I get back to where I started, I do the same thing. Not only is that a floss saver, that also makes the front and back look as nice when you are stitching something more of a plush or a plushie, but it is also going to make your stitches look really good, I think. I did do more of a back stitch when I back stitched the stems of the smaller flowers, and I did a running stitch when I stitched the bumblebee trail. I did not stitch or film the bumblebee trail, I don't believe, in the video, but I will be showing that in the Floral Beehive drum tutorial that is coming to my channel soon. So definitely check that out if you want to see that. We're just going to continue to stitch this. Now, I am not going to show stitching every single leaf on the project. In fact, I think there's 4 of these. Yes, there are. I only stitched 3 of them, or 2 and a partial, during the actual live. It is the same thing over and over, and I just felt like for a time saver, especially in the edited video, I did not want to just keep stitching these. But I am showing this here, and I will show you in a little bit, kind of laying a leaf partially over one of the cording stems, and I'm just tacking it down in place. I like a little bit of overlap amongst my die cuts, whether I'm working in paper or felt. Like, this is basically building a little floral garden scene. And I think if you think of it that way, you will like the results much better. Now, I got another little knot. I managed to get it out. I was having issues during the live, as you can see. Now, the other thing I want to talk about with this particular project, I did use my sewing machine. I did not actually flip the camera to the actual sewing process. I will be sharing that in a future video. If you do not have a sewing machine and you would still like to create some little felt pillows for your decor, and you are comfortable with hand stitching, when working with felt, you could always place 2 pieces of felt back to back, and you could stitch around the edges with a blanket stitch or a whip stitch, whatever you prefer, and you could make your own little pillow. I am a sewer quilter, and so I'm very comfortable with a sewing machine, and that's often what I'll use. But I did want to mention that here because I think that that would be a very, very cute finish as well, and something that could be totally done by hand if you're at all interested in trying that. The other thing I mentioned during the live was you can take your panel. I would probably leave my background panel a little bigger than what I'm actually using here if you're going to do this next idea. But if you want to frame up your felt stitched piece in a large embroidery hoop, grab one of those cheap embroidery hoops at the big box craft stores, and you can very easily frame up your little masterpieces. I have done that with several things. I've made hoop ornaments. I've made some hoop wall art for the holidays, and I want to create maybe some more of those everyday or other seasonal type things for decor in my home. With some of my dies. So I will be sharing those ideas as well for how to finish in an embroidery hoop. It's a very easy finish, and again, no machine sewing required for that either. Okay, as I finish up this and I'm coming around, I will tie off my thread on the back of my piece. Now, the next thing we're going to do is attach the sunflower bloom to the project. For the sunflower, it is 2 layers of flowers, one bigger than the other, and a brown center. Now, something that I want to talk about with the flower center here is that if you want, you do not have to use the loopy center that we are going to be adding to ours, which creates all that wonderful dimension. Now, the other thing I want to talk about with that loopy center is if you're going to turn yours into a pillow and you are not filming a video tutorial, I would wait to glue all of those down until you're done. I did glue all of mine down before, but it will make turning out your pillow, if you sew it together with a sewing machine, much easier. because you won't have that dimension. I was able to do it, and you are going to see me do it on camera. So that did work out, but I did try to be super, super careful. Now, I don't know if I'm exactly meeting up the stitching holes, and this is something else I talked about in the video tutorial, or the live video, pardon, is that as long as it's centered, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just making sure that I'm hitting the stitching holes in the brown flower center. That way it looks nice on the front. This, you're never going to see the back of it, so you aren't really going to tell if you are perfectly lining up the stitching holes, and I don't worry about it too much for something like this. If you're stitching the flower freestanding like the one I showed in the live, or I think I maybe even showed it in here, then yes, it's a lot easier to line up those stitching holes as you are pushing your needle and thread through. Let's talk needle and thread. I do use 3 strands of embroidery floss when I am felt stitching, and I like to use a sharp number 5 needle. I have linked my favorite ones down below. You don't necessarily need the sharp needle if you are stitching through the stitching holes. When that comes in handy, of course, I am stitching everything to a piece of felt, a solid piece of felt, no stitching holes in it. The sharp needles pierce through the felt so easily. They really just glide through, and you will be so, so happy that you have those. Now I'm going to stitch all the way around my flower center. You can see I went every other stitching hole. As I get back to where I started, I'm going to reverse and go back, filling in every other stitching hole. I did not quite have enough embroidery floss left over from the first sunflower I stitched, so I do have to tie this off on the back and grab another 3 strands of floss. The other thing, if you don't want to use the loopy flower center, you can always adorn the center of your sunflower with buttons, extra stitching. Maybe you want to do some fun little hand stitching, seed beads and sequins, whatever you like. There are so many fun ways to embellish your felt pieces, and I want to encourage you to really think outside the box. One of the things I really was talking about in the live video, especially at the beginning during my trunk show, was my vision for felt stitching dies. Many of you know I am a multi-crafter. I am a needle worker. I cross stitch, I quilt, and I personally love finding ways of incorporating my felt stitching dies into those other crafts. I don't necessarily want it to just always be plushes or, those plush ornaments for trees or whatever. Those are awesome and fantastic, but I want to kind of, extend the possibilities, if you will, broaden the horizons, and think outside the box. In this case, we've incorporated several different die sets. We've made cording, all of the things, and we are incorporating them and making a little pillow that can be used for decoration in your home. Here's that sunflower, by the way. I was sharing an idea I had. If you guys want to see me actually do this, let me know. But this is a paper tray ink. I believe it was it Fall Harvest? I think that's what we said. But it's a seed packet set, and I thought putting a little sunflower, like tacking it onto there, it would make a really cute little gift idea. So sharing it here. I haven't done it yet. If you want to see me do it, drop me a comment, let me know. So I am going to finish stitching around here. Again, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. The stitching is probably the most time-consuming part, but it's a fantastic activity to do while you are watching TV in an evening, or maybe watching a movie with your family, whatever the case may be. I always love having a little hand stitching project. I always try to have one with me wherever I go, and felt stitching is super easy to see. For those of us who generally maybe need a magnifier when we're cross stitching, this is something you don't need a magnifier for, and it's fantastic to just have with you to do a little stitching so you have something to keep your hands busy. Okay, there are our two sunflowers. Aren't they beautiful? Now you can see where those two other big leaves are going to go. I also have this small little flower. This is the little flower from the Cheeky Flower set. It actually doesn't have stitching holes in it. And what I am going to do for that is tack it in place. So what we're going to do first, these little leaves from our pumpkin house set, I am going to stitch. And these are just a nice little straight line all the way down the center. And I am going, you can see I kind of mixed them up. I've got 3 of these little blooms. I love my embellishments. In this case, all my flowers are the embellishments. I like them in odd numbers. So we have 5 flowers. We have 2 sunflowers and 3 of the little white flowers filling in the area. You could also add more additional flowers if you wanted to. You can do this however you want, or you could simply do maybe a little skinny pillow with 1 sunflower on it. I think that would be precious as well. So I am simply going to stitch my little leaves down just like so. Now, when I get done with this, remember I said that the white flowers don't have any stitching holes in them. You can glue them down if you want to with either Aleene's tacky glue, or you can do or hot glue, or you can do what I'm gonna do. And I just did like a little cross stitch in the center to tack my flower down. That keeps the petals of the flower loose like the sunflower, but also I've stitched it in place. Then I'm just gonna simply tie that off on the back. Now that we have both styles of flowers that have a loopy flower center down, I want to show you guys how we are going to attach those, because those are the showstopper. Those are the thing everybody wants to know about because they are just so stinking cute and fun. We also will be adding a bumblebee from the Floral Beehive to our project. I'm showing here that the bumblebee head doesn't have any stitching on it, and I like to use the Aleene's tacky glue to glue that down in place, and I will even be doing it here today. So for the flower centers, I'm going to have my hot glue gun ready. Anytime you have one of these dies, it is a long rectangular die or the short rectangular die. It has little stitching slits in it. And what we're going to do is, if you fold it in half lengthwise, here this one has 2 of them rolled one around another. That's for that center. We're only going to use 1 for the flower centers on our sunflower today. You fold it in half lengthwise and see how it instantly is creating those little loops there up at the top. And then starting at one end, you want to start rolling it in on itself. If you don't feel confident that it's going to stay put, you can put a little bit of either Aleene's or hot glue there. I generally don't. And then I roll it up around itself. If it comes unrolled, mine did. Spoiler alert, mine did. I just start over. I unroll it to where it started to come undone, and then I just re-roll it. And as you're rolling this around, it is creating these wonderful little loops. It's the perfect sunflower or flower center. I absolutely love this die. You can use it on its own to make loopy flowers. You can obviously use it here on your sunflower. It is just adorable. Then I put a little hot glue in between the 2 layers that I folded in half, and I put a little hot glue on the end and secure that end in place to make our little round flower center. I put hot glue in the center, and then I simply press it in place onto the sunflower. Once that hot glue is dried, that's when you can pick off any of those little hot glue trails. I promise the hot glue is not going to ruin the effect of a pillow finish when used in this way. Let's go ahead and do the little small one now. It is the same idea, but very teeny tiny. You fold it in half lengthwise, roll it up on itself. When you get close to the end, put a little hot glue here. Kind of squeeze it. I know I had to pull it close to myself, so sorry. Secure it, put a dab of hot glue in the center, and then press it right to the center of your flower, which covers up that little cross stitch. And then I just kind of fluff it out. Look how cute that is, you guys. Is that not the sweetest little flower? I love, love, love these flower centers. I think you guys are going to find so many uses for them and absolutely love them. So there I'm just showing some other projects I have created with my sunflower, as well as the cheeky apple little flower too. Okay, here is our bumblebee. This is from the Floral Beehive. So we have actually 4 felt sets represented in today's video. The bee is from Floral Beehive, the sunflower is from Sunflower Bloom, the small flower and flower center is from Cheeky Apple, and the little small leaf is from the Pumpkin House. And I say this because I want to encourage you, just like I do in paper crafting, to mix and match your supplies and your products. You may have other stitching dies at home that you could use to incorporate different things. And it makes crafting so fun. You can very much make it, make it your own that way. By mixing and matching, it makes it your own. So what I'm doing is I have some yellow embroidery floss. I think this is 3820. The exact color is going to be linked below. And I am stitching the yellow stripes of my bee to the black body, but I'm tacking it all in place to the pillow as I'm stitching. And of course it came loose as I got started and I messed it up. So my needle came out. It is a little finicky and it's a little small. And I also have quite a lot going on here on my fabric, but once you get it, you're gonna be golden. Now that is it to attach the bee. As I mentioned, the head is loose. And I think at this point, I am going to show you guys, I'm going to take a little bit of the Aleene's glue, and I am going to show you how I like to tack down the head so I don't have to worry about the antenna. I had traveled with my drum and a couple of them got a little boogered up just from the travel and handling, and I should have glued them down prior. All I do is I take a little bit of the glue and I actually just put a little on my finger. You can also put it on like a little toothpick or something. And I'm going to tap it on the back of my piece. You could do this with any of the felt pieces you need to tack in place. And then I just press it down and let it sit and dry. I actually had never fixed the bee on my cross stitch, so I did that for this as well, so I don't have to worry about that either. Just a little tip for you guys, if you ever are needing to tack something down or you're worried about it and it needs just a little more stability. It will dry pretty quickly. Normally, I probably would have done that last, but I really wanted to show that during the live. So I went ahead and did that. I do think though, I think it was smart to do that before I turned the pillow right side out. I was able to do that as well. I am not actually stitching through the head of the bumblebee to attach the wings. I've switched to the DMC color 3866, which is kind of a creamy off-white. The white I'm using for my felt is actually not white. It is called linen. So I feel like 3866 matches it really well. It's a little bit creamier white. I actually like it better than a pure white most of the time. And I am doing a little stitch to stitch these wings in place. You can see they all come out at different spots on the wing and they all go into the same hole there up at the center. So that's what I am doing here. And I'm going to stitch both of these down. And again, my needle's not going through where I've placed that liquid glue at all. So I don't have to worry about boogering up my needle or getting, glue everywhere. You definitely don't want to do that. Okay, I've stitched my bumblebee on. At this point, I have really stitched, I think, everything different. Yeah, I have to look at it, that I need to do. I am going to show you stitching a leaf and how I attach it over the cording, because now it's just finishing and layering pieces. I have another little flower, a couple more little leaves to stitch on. Well, several more leaves actually. And then we're going to pull it all together into a pillow finish. Okay, so I am going to speed up the video for the rest of the stitching that I did during the live. If you want to slow that down, you can always click the little gear button and slow the video down to watch it in real time or go back and watch the YouTube live replay. I just wanted to show the rest of the creation, how I assembled this or how I stitched this during this video, even though I speed it up quite a bit just to save a little bit of time so we can get to the pillow construction. Here I am stitching over part of the stem on one of the sunflowers, just adding those leaves in. I think the more greenery, the more leaves you add. I say this all the time, you guys, in paper crafting. When I am building a floral arrangement, your greenery matters. I use 2 different colors of green for my greenery here today. Plus I have lots of leaves. Each stem has at least 2, well, I guess they all only have 2 leaves. You could do more if you wanted to, but the leaves make a huge difference. It would be very easy to go, well, they each have 1, or that's good, whatever. But I personally think they look amazing with lots of leaves, lots of greenery. It fills in some of that open space, no matter what kind of craft you're doing. Okay, so I am going to add that last little flower center, as I mentioned, rolling that up. And then I am going to give you a close-up look at both of those dies. I know I showed them during the live, but I wanted to show them to you here because I had a question during the live of what do those dies look like? And do they cut the little slits in it? And yes, they absolutely do. You do not have to use your scissors. So there is the little one from the Cheeky Apple. And the longer one, I'll grab out of my Sunflower Craft Stacks box. Here it is. That's the one for the sunflower. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, time to put the pillow together. I am going to zoom out a little bit. I have stitched everything in place. I did add the bee trail. I knew I didn't leave that on there. I am using my ruler. Obviously, I am not going to get a clean cut if I try to lay my ruler over all of that dimension. So I don't normally cut this way, but you can see I cut about, I believe, 3/4 of an inch off of the left side. And I am going to cut about, I think I'm going to pull that back to 1/4 of an inch on the right. This is going to make a little bit skinnier, taller pillow, but I'm getting rid of a lot of that white space that I don't love. Now, I am going to trim some interfacing to fit my pillow. If you were in the live video, I did talk about this. I'm just holding this up at an angle, by the way. It just needs to be close. I can trim it down later. But I like to back my pillows, whether I'm using cotton or felt, with interfacing. I feel like it gives some nice structure to the pillow finish. It is going to be, this is iron-on interfacing. It's going to be a bit of a booger to iron it onto something with so much dimension. I will show fixing that. And likewise, I am going to put interfacing on the fabric, the 100% cotton fabric I'm using for the back. This is a Minky Kim print from, I want to say, Bloomberry collection. It's something I had in my stash and it just perfectly matched my pillow, really. I love it. Sometimes you get lucky and have the exact right thing. I'm going to go ahead and just how about iron on the interfacing for this piece. I just kind of press it in place and then I'm going to iron it from the fabric front because it glides a lot easier. Make sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to cut the backing fabric the same size as the front. So here I am gluing that ironing on the interfacing. I am going to press all those little areas. There we go. I'm trying to press on any of the areas that are a little flat. So it may not be perfectly attached, but honestly, it's just going to give enough structure. You could iron it on before stitching. I just don't really love stitching through it, but that would be an option as well so that it's already there. Okay, I am just going to trim down, and you notice I'm not trimming off my cording quite yet. I am trimming down my fabric, and I'm going to trim it exactly to size here in a second. I'm going to just move my fabric out of the way. So I am taking it, and I'm kind of holding my ruler at an angle. You have to be creative at times. Sometimes if you are not doing a flat quilt block, you might have to be creative. So I am just trimming up my interfacing and my backing and all of that to be exact same size as the front of my pillow, whatever that ends up being. I don't know exactly how big mine was. I will give you the exact finished dimensions in the video description for what it finished at. I did sew with a 1/4 inch seam, so it will be a 1/4 of an inch bigger than that. Okay, then you want to pin them front to front, and I overpin because there's a lot of dimension going on. Remember how I said it might be easier to do this without adhering your flower centers? It probably would be, not just for turning, but sewing as well. I will say I had no trouble sewing this, but I overpinned. I pinned all the way around so that it didn't shift, that it wasn't wonky. And instead of leaving an opening in the seam, which I do like, I do love doing a little blind stitch or a ladder stitch to stitch my pillows shut a lot of the times. I've also really been loving cutting an opening in the back of my pillow finish, stuffing it that way and then filling it. And if you're going to be sewing with felt is stretchy, I would highly recommend stitching up the entire thing like I'm going to do here and cutting a hole in the back. Felt is stretchy. Your cotton is not going to be near as stretchy. Sometimes it can make it wonky. I found that when I did my reindeer pillow. Wish I would have done this. In fact, I may resew it, to be honest, this year when I get it out. So I am stitching up. I'm going to pin this up. I'm going to leave those tails on my cording until I've stitched over them. And I'm going to run over to my sewing machine and I'll stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now I'm also going to trim up these labels. I have linked these down in the description below, not these specific ones. I am part of the Sweetwater tagged label club, and I have lots of these. I've been a member of their club for years and years, and I have started using these because I have more small projects than big quilts. So I also like to put a personalized label on my quilt, and I highly love this club. You get different ones each month, so I just picked something that I thought coordinated with this pillow finish. Okay, I sewed around all 4 sides. You can see there using a pretty small stitch length. I think it was about 1.5. And I'm going to go around, I'm going to cut off the corners. Don't cut through your stitching. And I also cut off the tails from my cording to make it nice and clean. On the back of your piece, make sure that you have the back, not the front. Pull it up and make sure very carefully that you are only going to cut through the back of your pillow. I like to figure out where I'm going to put my label, how big my label is. You'll notice that's why I have my label out, using it to figure this. And I'm going to cut an opening with some very sharp snips. These are some Tim Holtz snips, and my label will cover that up completely. Then I gently go into my pillow and I start pushing it out. My recommendation is go slow, go gently, and don't pull at all. You'll notice I'm going to work my flowers out really gently, and I'm going to try to work on the backing of my pillow for the most part and just gently pop out the front. I also forgot to mention, I did stick in a little seam tag there. I got those at Fat Quarter Shop, and I will link to those down below as well. It says, "Thanks, I made it." I thought it was kind of funny. Now, to work out the corners, you want to be gentle with this. I always use a little seam turner tool, and I'm going to gently poke out the corners. I like my corners to be as poked out as possible. I don't want them super rounded. I want them kind of squared, but you also don't want to poke through the fabric. So I work that out very gently, very slowly. It's also part of the other reason I use such a short stitch length, usually between like 1¼ to 1½ with little pillows like this or any cross stitch finishes. It's a pain if you ever have to pick it out, but I think it finishes a lot nicer. Now, once I'm finished with this, I'm actually not going to press it because this has so much dimension. Normally I flip that over and press it. I'm not going to. I will press this in a little bit. I'll show you that, but I'm not going to press it right now. Now you're going to want to go ahead and stuff through that opening in the back with your favorite stuffing tool. This can be polyester fiber fill, cotton batting, or wool roving. I use wool roving for most of my pillow finishes anymore. I like it. It stays put. I have completely stopped using polyester fiber fill. I don't use cotton batting a lot, but I do have a friend who swears by it, so I'm going to pick some up and I'll give it a try and let you guys know what I think. I do love the wool roving. If you are a cross stitcher and follow Kathy of Hands On Design, this is what she uses for everything too, I believe. It's a tip I got from her and I have been so happy with it. One of the reasons being, when I go to press the back of my pillow, remember I didn't press it when it was flattened, but I am going to press it as soon as it's stuffed. I don't have to worry about polyester fiber fill, poly pellets, anything like that melting when I take the hot iron to it. And I am pretty firm with my ironing because I kind of like this flattened pillow finish. I've really been loving that look lately. Just like with polyester fiber fill, I think the wool roving, it's going to leave a little bit of a mess. In fact, I had a mess everywhere. I would encourage you, if you do a lot of stuffing of any kind of finishes, grab and you don't already have one, I guess I should say, grab one of those lint rollers. I cleaned up everything, including the front of my pillow with a lint roller, and it cleaned up everything perfectly. My work surface, my pillow, all of the things. You want to work your wool roving, fiber fill, whatever you're using in your fingers. And you can see I'm pulling it apart and it's called lofting. You want to loft it. You don't want to just take the product and shove it in your pillow. That is where you get lumps and bumps no matter what you're using to stuff. I want to encourage you, loft your product. Then I use this stick. It came in an old package of polyester fiber fill and I've kept it because I love it. And I use that to stuff my pillow. It always takes more than what you think it's going to take, always. So I am stuffing this full. You can see here, just lofting it in my fingers. I like to go out to the corners first and then along the sides and then the center. I will work it between my hands, just trying to get it, make sure that I'm not missed anything, make sure that it's nice all the way around the seams. And we're just going to continue to do this for a little bit. I wanted to really leave this in, show you guys all the steps in how I go about finishing something like this. So still stuffing, it still has a pretty good opening there. Now, because we're going to be covering that cut opening in the back with an iron-on patch, you could leave it. Something I talk about in my pillow finishing, and I've shared a couple of things I think lately. I know I shared one in my stitching level Patreon that was an exclusive to that Patreon. I actually stitch my opening shut. I feel like stitching those two sides together makes the shape a little bit nicer. It doesn't have to look fantastic. In fact, it's not going to be all that great because we are going to cover it with a patch and you aren't going to see it. But I do think taking that little bit of extra time to stitch that shut is worth it. And I will show you that here in a minute. But I have a lot more stuffing to go, so bear with me as I finish this. And I work pretty quickly. In fact, my dogs really wanted to be fed supper at this point, and they were talking to me the whole time, and I kept saying, I'm almost done, and then I would feel the pillow, and I would notice that, no, we're not almost done. I still had areas that needed filled in. So It'll take a minute, but just work your stuffing product in there. And I like to work it along the seams up into those corners. All of the corners along all of the seams and sides so that your pillow has really good shape. I do think pillow making, the more you do it, the better you get at it, you guys. For sure, the better you get at it. You kind of start knowing how you like your pillows to feel, how you want them to look, etc. And then just kind of rock it in your hands if you can. You'll notice I do that a lot. Just kind of working it, making sure that I like how, you know, how the pillow looks and all of that good stuff. And it still even needs a little bit more. Believe it or not, the little box of wool roving that I get lasts forever. I've actually used mine for several things, and I have a lot left in my box, even after filling this entire pillow. I cut it into chunks with my scissors. It makes it a little bit more manageable, and then I just simply pull it apart and stuff away. Okay, let's look at it from the front. It's always good to get an idea from the front how it looks. And I can see a couple of little spots that don't look fantastic. So we're just going to loft a little bit more, especially around that opening. Everything tends to go away from it. You definitely don't want to have a big divot right where that opening is in your pillow. All right. Oh, it looks good. A little bit more. Just when you think it looks good, that's where you add more. That's my rule of thumb, you guys. Get it to where it looks good and then go ahead and add just a little bit more. Now I'm actually going to, I think, stitch this up and then we're going to iron it to help flatten it out and really get that really, really good shape. And I'm stuffing and I'm kind of pushing it along the edges, as you can see. Here's my lint roller, and I am literally just picking up all of that mess from all over my pillow. Let's go ahead and tear that sheet off. Go around the front, the back. I went over my work surface, all the things. Do all of the things. This goes for polyester fiberfill as well. I always had a linty mess everywhere I worked, and I would just recommend cleaning it all up. In fact, I took my sheet when I was done and I went all over my desk cleaning. Okay, I'm going to load up a needle with this upholstery thread. Had to think about that a minute. It's a super, super strong thread. I use it for lots of like lacing, finishing, all the things. I'm just going to do a little stitch where I'm pulling the two sides of my opening together. And again, you wouldn't have to do this, but I do feel like it makes your pillow look a lot nicer. You don't have to worry that that opening is gaping. That can distort the front of your pillow a little bit, or at least the back. So take that little bit of extra effort. You can see my stitches aren't great, but this is literally just pulling the sides together, kind of doing a little Frankenstein type look here. And we're going to cover it with the label. No one is going to know but you and me. And so no one who looks at this, or if you gift it, no one is going to know that this is how you finished up the pillow. And I just think, again, it looks a lot nicer. And then I'll just tie that into a little knot. We're going to grab our wool pressing mat and our iron, and I'm going to show you how I finish this up and how I place my label right down over this. You could also make your own little felt patch if you wanted to, a felt patch on the back. I've done that many times, and that's a nice little finishing technique as well. Oh my gosh, you guys, look how beautiful this pillow is. I love it. So on the back, I always tip or flip my pillow over. I never want to press right on a cross stitch or anything like that. And I am going to go in and I am using a lot of strength here, and I am pressing. I'm pressing hard and I'm smoothing out. I just think this step is critical in making it makes it nice and flat, even though it's still stuffed, and I just love it. So I'm pushing really hard. Then we're going to take our label, and I want to make sure it's centered, and I'm going to carefully press one side and then press the other, and that is going to be it, friends. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this sunflower pillow finishing tutorial. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please be sure to check out the other felt stitching projects on my YouTube channel. We'll catch you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new floss tube stitching or quilting video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.